We're back with some more John LFG, this time doing a solo Grandmaster strike. I was farming this strike and I actually had such an easy time that I thought I would even try to solo it, and sure enough I was able to do it. So I thought I'd go ahead and show and explain to you guys how I was able to get it done. If you are unfamiliar with John LFG, he is stuck at Guardian rank 2, which means that he doesn't have access to a lot of super important stuff, most notably the armor and weapon mods. That being said, we are able to unlock all of Prismatic and the class items, which means we're able to use a pretty powerful build on Titan. I'm sure that you guys have all at least seen some version of the consecration spam setup on Titan, and unfortunately if you were looking for something different, I'm sorry, I'm going to be using it here. I'm already at a disadvantage with not being able to use stuff like armor mods, so of course I wanted to use the most powerful build I could. Now what I'm doing here is just trying to farm up some Transcendence energy before I go absolutely ham on the big crowd in front of me. There's 2 overloads, a couple of orange bars, and I think even a mini boss as well. But you're not even really going to get to see that because once we go Transcendent, we just absolutely smash everything. Now we ended up leaving this one overload, which was a little bit annoying, but we were still able to take him down nice and easy just because we do have some super powerful gear this season for taking on overloads, mostly in the form of overload area denial frame grenade launchers. And now moving into the next area, we're going to have an unstop as well as a boss here. I decided to pop my super here just because I would need more than the 2 consecrations I had to take everything out here, and I wasn't already Transcendent. That's kind of what the super does. You get it back basically just as quickly as Transcendence because of the overpowered buff that we got recently to roaming supers. It just made this kind of ridiculous. That said, I'm really not that good at doing GMs and stuff like that, and this is my first time doing a solo GM attempt. And when you mix that in with me also being a Guardian rank 2, it does make it a little bit more harder for me than it is for most people. That said, you still kind of use a similar playstyle to others, where you're basically just trying to be really aggressive and get as many heal procs off using stuff like Knockout and Facet of Blessing as possible. This week actually has a modifier called Brawn, which gives you an increase in your health but takes away all natural regen. And basically this just makes it so that playing slow is almost unbearable because you can't wait for your natural regen while you're in cover, and you just have to go ham at all times getting melee kills as much as you can to keep your health high. While we're waiting on this plate some more, I thought I'd let you guys know that this was actually supposed to be a live commentary, but I realized that I had my mic a little bit too far away from myself when I was recording, and so I just sounded absolutely horrible while I was recording it. But at least with this setup, I'm able to give you guys a little bit of a better explanation of what's going on, since I'm not also distracted by trying to play the game at the same time. I also thought I'd go ahead and give a little bit of an update on John LFG while I'm here. I have been playing him exclusively for the last month or so now. I haven't even touched my main account. And it's getting close to the point where I'm actually more powerful on John LFG than my main now. I have plans to start working on my Hunter soon, because right now only my Titan and Warlock are really in playable states. Although John LFG will most likely remain a Warlock main, just because that's what I am and it's what I'm the most comfortable with. But that could change in the future, especially if Sanguine Alchemy gets nerfed, since it has now been made into a mainstream meta option. But I don't really know what to expect from the sandbox going forward, since the game is kind of in a dying state, and I don't really think we're going to have any dramatic mix-ups for quite a while. But on the bright side, the meta is overall pretty enjoyable, I'd say, especially in DPS and stuff, with grenade launchers, and also having some decent options like Grand Overture as single weapon choices as well. We've got a really good balance going on there at least. But getting back to the GM, you can see I decided to pop my super there to be safe, and now I could take it forward and do a little bit of damage to everybody with it here. Then I went and used the grenade launcher to get an overload stun and just started smashing consecrations out until everything went bye-bye. So while we're waiting on the stragglers to get picked up and to go through the transition after this, I thought I would ask you guys for a little bit of feedback. Obviously, John LFG kind of started with doing LFG raids and stuff like that, and that's still going to be the main content, obviously, because it is what I have the most fun doing, and I think that you guys like it the most as well. But I do want to know what you guys think of the more unique challenges like this one, or doing solo flawless dungeons. What I saw from the solo flawless prophecy video was that people seemed less interested in it, however that could totally just be because it's prophecy and not one of the newer dungeons. So I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments down below. I also want to know what you guys think about going into other games as well. Obviously, Destiny doesn't seem like it's going to be lasting too much longer, and I'm not really sure what I should do going forward. I know a lot of Destiny YouTubers are going into Warframe, but it's just never been something I really got into. I know most people have at least tried it a little bit and kind of know what they're doing going into it, but I don't really think I'd make great content in Warframe, unfortunately. One thing I do want to try is doing a Skyrim video. There's even a popular challenge in Skyrim of staying at level 1 throughout the playthrough and not getting any experience from any source, so you're super limited on how you can do damage and play the game and stuff. And I think that obviously leans into the John LFG challenge quite a bit. I also am pretty familiar with how Skyrim actually works, just because I've been in some of these Skyrim glitch finding communities for quite a while actually. I always thought it was really interesting just because it's such a broken game. And in a way, it kind of shares that with Destiny as well. Overall, I just think I could make a pretty cool Skyrim playthrough by playing at level 1 and kind of theming it around John LFG, and I'd have a ton of cool tricks to show off to you guys as well. But I just don't know if anybody would care about Skyrim who are Destiny players, which is obviously my current audience. But getting back on track, you can see we're kind of just beating our way through this with Consecration still. I like to rush past a lot of the enemies in this room because once you get to the end, you can basically just jump past everything, do a 180, and then kill everyone behind the overload at the same time. I think that's kind of the safest way to do things, and it's also obviously quite a bit faster than gradually plinking your way through everything. The Brawn modifier really does push you to just go all out in these Grandmasters. But now we're back through, and we're going to be running through some more mazes before we go into the second teleportation room, after we clear this room that has 2 plates. So right here, I decide to just weaken everybody up with the GL, and then I just start consecrating. Since I don't have a grenade, and I wasn't Transcendent at first, I didn't have a way to unstop right away, but I was able to just spam consecrations and take everything out anyway, because it does stun unstops eventually. Now from there, I decide to clear up the room a little bit here, just because you have to run back past this area switching between plates, and if I end up being at low health after one of the plates, then it would suck to have to go through here and deal with enemies. So we jump over to the left, which I think is the harder of the 2 plates, and since this was something that I knew would take me multiple tries to do, I was obviously doing all the harder stuff first. That way I would be more likely to die earlier rather than being more likely to die later in the run. But neither side is too bad on Titan. Between having the Super and Transcendence ready to go, I'm pretty much ready for anything a GM could throw at me. One of the priorities is taking out this yellow bar captain here, so I do decide to pop my Super and just take him down using that. And while I'm in my Super, I have a ridiculous amount of damage resistance, and when you mix that in with Brawn and Facet of Protection on Prismatic and stuff, you end up basically just being immune and not even having to really watch your back that much. Then I see that the captain actually wasn't killed by all the stasis crystals, so I start blowing them up until he gets killed. Then just a little bit of cleanup on the last few enemies, and then we can get out of here because the plate is complete. And the second plate is just an even easier version of the first one, so I thought I would talk a little bit more about the channel. I know I've already done that quite a bit, but this is kind of my opportunity to do that, because whenever I'm in a call with other people, like on raids and stuff, obviously I don't really have that opportunity. So if you are a new viewer and I'm just yapping about stuff that you don't really know about, I'm sorry. But for my regular viewers, I am just kind of using this as a way to have a conversation with them. But one thing I want to talk about is my Discord server. I've been working on getting more people in there. We actually just got over 300 members after we did the last stream of attempting solo Flawless Vespers host. That was a really fun time actually. And a lot of these super active chatters ended up joining the Discord, and I absolutely love getting to see that. That said, one of my favorite things about building up this channel has definitely been getting to interact with my own community, and obviously the Discord is the best place to do that. I could also use help with like random grindy things sometimes too, like I'm going to have to do dual destiny on the Hunter to unlock it later, and I like to ask my server for help with stuff like that whenever I can. So if you are interested in interacting with me more, or just some of the resources that I have there, like some useful links like the DPS spreadsheet, or a channel where people can share their build links to super powerful builds, then we'd love to have you there. And the other thing I wanted to talk about is that I just opened up memberships on the channel. I made them pretty minimal, and I don't think I really want to do a lot with them just because I want the channel to maintain fully accessible to everybody. One thing I never liked was releasing videos early to members, so I'm never going to do that. But if you do want to support me more directly, then you can just sign up for a membership and you get some cool little emojis you can use in the comments and on streams, as well as a nice little badge next to your name. I might also post some more low quality clips that I normally wouldn't make it onto the channel, although I'm not totally sure if I want to do that yet. I'd probably do that in the form of shorts that are members only, I guess, but I haven't actually done that yet. But yeah, we're pretty much done with the strike now. We just finished up in the second room, so now we're just headed on to the last little space before the boss room. And this is a group that I actually try to rush. I just pop Transcendence and then take out the 2 champions who are stacked on top of each other really quickly, and this lets me get past here and make use of my Transcendence in the next room. And that's really important because this is by far the most densely packed area in the entire strike, and is definitely one of the most densely packed areas just in the whole game. There's like 3 or 4 unstops, 2 mini bosses, a ton of ads, and obviously this is just a consecration player's dream. You just spam off all your abilities and eventually everything will go away. It's moments like these that you want to remember that tossing your grenade makes your melee regen really quickly whenever you're transcendent, and vice versa, so you want to make use of both, and that's why I'm doing both, even though technically if I just had infinite consecrations and I could just do them over and over, that would probably be better. But because we need so many consecrations to clear this room, it is actually better to mix some grenades in there as well. And then this guy decided to be the last one alive, so I just cleaned him up with my sword that doesn't have any surrounded perk requirements, and we can move on to the boss room. And the boss room is a pretty chill one overall as far as GMs go. While there's not really a whole lot of cover, it's pretty easy to stay alive just because of the amount of enemies there are. It really just lets you get healing abilities at all times. That said, it is unique in that it takes you through those 2 teleportation rooms we went through earlier throughout the damage phase, so we'll have to deal with that again, but we do get through them pretty quickly. Basically here, while there are enemies active, I go for consecrations and take out the champions using the splash, and then once I'm either out of consecrations or if all the enemies are killed, then I'll use my super since that doesn't need me to be surrounded to get the full damage. And you can see just with the broken abilities on Titans, we do saw through his health pretty quickly, however he did kind of run away from me while I was in my super a lot. But through the power of Titan bullshit, we're able to take him down and get into the next phase. And this is the narrow hallway room. Once again, I just kill a few enemies up here. I did go Transcendent because I had absolutely no abilities and I knew I was going to need them for this room. But then we can kind of start rushing. Again, once you get to the backside, you can consecrate backwards and then just kind of take down everything. And I went for that there with the little 180 consecration move. And I just punched those guys so I could be full health going into the second half of the area, where once again we are kind of going to just rush everything. I did shoot down some area denial shots so that I could burn the enemies as they were taking the path that I expected them to take. And then just like before, we can consecrate from behind and get the biotic buff from the enemies that are now rushing us in the other direction. And just like that, we're on to the second phase of the boss. This time he's going to spawn another champion, and we want to make sure we kill him before we take down this phase, otherwise we could have issues where we don't get platinum, and that would be unfortunate. Now we were only able to take out like half of his health with the one consecration we had, so we go to recharge our transcendence using the area denial frame, we pop it, and now we can transcend a whole bunch more. So we finish him off with more consecrations, and the boss is around him as well, which is always nice. And now we can focus on the boss, but I do take a moment to kill the abomination just because he can kill you and be annoying. But from here, we're free to just melt the boss as fast as we can now, so I go for some consecrations while the enemies are around, but eventually, once I kill them all, I decide to switch over to my super. And with the click of my right click button several times until the boss goes away while we're at a sweet spot distance, we can take him down to the next phase. And now we're in the second room, and I do like rushing these just because they're not really that dangerous. There's only like 4 enemies on each platform, although I do still decide to kill them just so I'm not getting shot from behind while I'm dealing with the stuff at the end. I also had one run where there was a sniper here that just one-shotted me from full health somehow. Not really sure how that happened, but I decided to just start killing everything since we're at the end of the run anyway. And it's not like I'm going for a speed run or anything where I'm trying to do this as fast as possible. But since the overload isn't going to have any enemies around it, we can just take them down using our sword, and since we have so much ammo and it's the end of the mission, we can just use up all the heavy we want. And now back out into the boss room, we can get ready for the final phase, where we have to deal with one more champion before we can take the boss down for good. So I start looking around for him, and eventually I'll find him. I clear out some ads to keep my health up, and the overload made the mistake of standing next to the boss, which is never a good idea. So I went ahead and got my stun ready, and just started dropping consecrations on them. The immune totems can be pretty annoying, but the splash from consecration tends to just take them out, so even if you do get trolled by it, you can just drop another one, and generally you're pretty good from there. So from here, I basically just lined up my consecration to hit the boss alongside the overload, and then I went for a super to finish him off. So after some more right-clicking my mouse while at a good distance, we get his health down super low, but we actually aren't quite able to kill him with just the super alone because he decides to fling towards us and screw up our distance. If you are the wrong distance while you're using the behemoth super, you pretty much lose all the damage. You basically have to land the crystals on the enemy for it to work, but we've got consecrations to finish it off. And that's going to be how I soloed a Grandmaster strike on John LFG at Guardian rank 2.